Have you ever wondered if your thoughts could literally attract someone to you? I mean, really attract them? Well, today we're diving into a fascinating and pretty controversial 1999 book that claims you can do just that. It's called Mind Power Seduction by Amargi Hillier, and it makes some seriously wild claims. We're going to break down exactly what it says straight from the source. And that brings us to the million-dollar question, right? The core premise of this whole thing. Can your mind actually send out frequencies, like a little radio tower, that can influence and even attract other people? That's the idea we're going to unpack. So here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll follow the book's logic through 4 key ideas. First, we'll look at the foundation, this concept that your thoughts literally shape reality. Then we'll dig into the so-called science the author uses to explain how it all works. After that, we get to the fun part, the main technique, visualization. And finally, we'll cover the specific mindset the book says you absolutely have to have for any of this to work. All right, first up, your thoughts shape reality. This isn't just a casual idea in the book, it's the absolute bedrock. Everything else is built on top of this one foundational claim. The central argument is really pretty simple. Thought itself is a tangible, unseen force. I mean, just because you can't see your thoughts doesn't mean they aren't real, right? The book claims they can directly impact your environment, and this is the key part, the feelings and actions of other people. Now, to make this idea a little easier to swallow, the author draws a parallel to all these other invisible forces that we just accept every day. You don't see the waves carrying a signal to your phone or your TV or your radio, but you totally believe they exist. So the book asks a simple question. Why should thought waves be any different? And you might be wondering, okay, but how does it work? Well, the book's approach is surprisingly straightforward. It basically says you don't need to be a quantum physicist to make this work. You don't need to understand how a car's engine works to drive it, right? The author's point is to just trust the machine, your mind, and learn how to get it working for you. And to really hammer this point home, Hillier argues that this whole process, thought becoming reality, it's happening all around us, all the time. Just think about it for a second. The chair you're sitting in, the house you're in, none of it just appeared. It all started as a thought, an idea in someone's head. That idea became a plan, a blueprint, and then finally a physical thing. The book uses this as proof that turning ideas into reality is just a natural process. So, if thoughts are waves, how exactly do they work? Well, that brings us to our second section, the science of attraction. And I'm using air quotes there because this is where the book lays out its own unique framework for how these mental frequencies are supposed to operate. The key to all of this, according to the book, is our brainwave states. So right now, you're probably in the beta state. You're awake, you're alert. But as you relax and start to daydream, you slip into the alpha state. Go even deeper to that fuzzy moment right before you fall asleep, and that's theta. And then, of course, there's delta, which is deep sleep. The book claims all the magic happens in those 2 middle states, alpha and theta. So why are those states so important? Well, here's the claim. It's in these relaxed, lower frequency states that our thoughts can supposedly break free from the normal rules of time and space. This is what supposedly allows them to travel and influence someone else, no matter where they are. This leads to another really interesting concept in the book, higher dimensions. Now, these aren't described as separate places, like another planet or something. It's more like different reality levels or wavelengths that are all mixed in with ours. We just aren't tuned to them. It's kind of like a radio that's on the wrong station. The other broadcasts are still there, you just can't hear them. And here is where the author gets incredibly specific. Hillier claims that the average wavelength of our 3D universe is precisely 7.23 centimeters. Yeah. The book suggests that by getting into those alpha and theta states, we can slightly alter our own personal wavelength, allowing our thoughts to broadcast way more effectively on these other planes. Okay, so that's a theory. A little wild, right? But how do you actually do it? This brings us to section 3, the art of visualization. This is the main technique, the how-to part of the book, where all these ideas are put into practice. And this next point is maybe the most crucial instruction in the entire book. It's how you visualize. The author is super clear on this. You can't watch yourself like you're seeing a movie. That's the wrong way. Instead, you have to experience the scene from a first-person perspective, seeing everything through your own eyes, as if you are physically there, living it in that moment. So Hillier lays out a really clear routine. First, you find a quiet spot where you won't be bothered. You start small, just practicing on simple things, like an orange. But the key, according to the book, is to get all your senses involved.
Imagine the smell, the feel of the peel, the sounds, make it feel completely real. And consistency is everything. The book recommends a pretty strict practice of 15 minutes 3 times a day.
But just doing the technique isn't enough, and that brings us to our final and maybe most important section, the keys to mental seduction. According to the book, having the right mindset is just as important as the visualization itself, if not more so. And this is where things get a little counterintuitive. The author insists that for this to work, you have to have an attitude of detachment, a feeling of, I don't care. Obsessing over whether it's working or not is, according to the text, the absolute biggest thing that will stop you from succeeding. So why is this I don't care attitude so important? Well, the book's logic is that being needy or desperate creates what it calls a repulsive energy. You have to have this calm confidence that it just works. So the process is simple. You do the visualization technique, you trust that it's doing its thing, and then, in the author's own words, you blow it off and completely forget about it. So there you have it. That's a quick tour through the wild world of mind power seduction. It's a book built on some really radical ideas, from thought waves and higher dimensions to the power of detached visualization. Now, whether you think it's pseudoscience or a powerful mental tool, the book leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question. If we take its central idea seriously, that our thoughts are always creating our reality, then it's worth asking yourself, what reality are you creating?